Welcome, Parshas Vayeitzei. It should be the Refuah Shlema, Noam Avraham ben Atara Shlomit, Mordechai Eitan ben Sarah, Rachel bas Chava, and all our soldiers should be safe and sound. So in the beginning of this week's Parsha, it says, Vayeitzei Yaakov and Avraham, Vayelech Harana. Wait a minute. And back in last week's Parsha, Yaakov was told by his mother and father, Rivka and Yitzchak, to go to Padna Aram. If that's the case, why does this week's Parsha begin with Vayeitzei Yaakov and Avraham? We know from last week's Parsha already that Yaakov left. Furthermore, if you look between last week's Parsha, where Yaakov is told to go and leaves from Beersheba, and this week's Parsha, where it begins Vayeitzei Yaakov, that Yaakov left Beersheba, it interrupts it with Esav's marriage. Why does it interrupt? What's the connection between these seemingly unrelated events? So the Tzoror Hamor offers a fascinating explanation that addresses both questions. When Yitzchak and Rivka instructed Yaakov to leave Beersheba, Esav was furious that Yaakov had taken the brachos away from him and was actively chasing him. He wanted to kill him. He had a death sentence. So to protect himself, Yaakov went into hiding rather than openly leaving for Haran. So he went into hiding and he waited. So the Torah now tells us that about Esav's marriage. Why? Because that's when Yaakov saw, Esav is now preoccupied with getting married. So he realized that the immediate danger has now passed. And only then did he emerge from hiding and depart to the Beersheba. And that's this week's Parsha, Vayeitzei Yaakov and Beersheba, because only now was he able to safely journey to Haran. So this gives us a very interesting insight into the connection between last week's Parsha, the interruption of Esav's marriage, leading into this week's Parsha, where it repeats again that Yaakov left because he had originally went into hiding. Then once he saw that Esav got married, he was able to then go on his way to Haran. Yaakov leaves Beersheba, leaves his parents, and he has 14 years with Lavan, and then afterwards he runs away from Lavan for about 2 years and then goes back to his home. The Gemara in Megillah discusses that Yaakov Avinu was punished for not returning back home sooner. After he left Lavan's house, before returning home, he should have went back to Yitzchak. So Rabbi Zussman, Fischel, Sofer, raises a question. Why is the Gemara concerned about Kibud Av regarding Yaakov, and thus being punished? The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that a ben Noach are not obligated in the mitzvah of Kibud Av. So if so, why was Yaakov punished for failing to honor his father during those 2 years? A similar question is asked regarding Avraham Avinu. Back in Parshas Lacha and at the end of Parshas Noach, the Midrash explains that Avraham was concerned about fulfilling the mitzvah of honoring his father, and that's why the Torah first states, Vayamas Terach becharan. Terach died in Haran, and then after, and at the time that it says it, this is right before Lech Lecha, where Avram leaves, leaves Terach. The Terach still lives on 60 years, another 60 years. So why is it saying that Terach passed away when he is still going to be alive for another 60 years past when Avraham is Lechacha mi'artcha l'adcha? So the Medrash explains this is to indicate that Avraham was given a kind of exemption from the mitzvah of Kibud Av. But wait a minute, if Ben Noach is not obligated in this mitzvah, why did he need an exemption? So one explanation that you can offer could be that the Avos HaKadoshim, the holy forefathers, had the status of Jews even before Matan Torah. So as such, they would be obligated in the mitzvah of Kibud Kibud Av V'Eim, even if Bnei Noach in general were not. But another explanation given by Rabbi Eliezer Chaim Deutsch offers a deeper explanation. Why is a Bnei Noach not obligated in Kibud Av? We're going to focus on Kibud Av. Kibud Aim, you can explore the Or Sameach on the Rambam. And he explains on a deeper level why a Ben Noach is exempt there. But focusing on Kibud Av for a minute, he suggests that it's because there's a possibility the person presumed to be the father is not the biological father. And the Torah only obligates us in Kibud Av of honoring a parent when there's certainty about the biological relationship. So for Jews, for Yidden, we can rely on the halachic principle of rov, majority, which presumes that the husband of the mother is the biological father. And thus, Jews are obligated in the mitzvah of Kibud Av. However, for a Ben Noach, for Bnei Noach, this principle of rov is not applied. We don't apply rov, majority, by Bnei Noach, and therefore they are not obligated. In the case of Yaakov Avinu, there was no doubt that Yitzchak was his father. The Avos were a direct and unbroken chain in the formation of Am Yisrael, and each father was unquestionably the biological father of the next. Avraham was the father of Yitzchak, and Yitzchak was the father of Yaakov, and there was no doubt of that. And thus, Yaakov was obligated in Kibud Av, because there is now a certainty of Yitzchak being his father. He had this mitzvah of Kibud Av, and his failure to honor Yitzchak during those 2 years resulted in sin, according to the Gemara and Megillah. And similarly, regarding Avram Avinu, there was no doubt that Terach was his father. The Torah says, "But Terach holid as Avraham," to show that there was no question that Terach was Avraham's father. And since there was no uncertainty here as well, Avram needed an exemption from Kibud Av. Moving on, Perik Chav Ches, Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayifka b'Makom. What is Makom? The concept of Makom carries deep spiritual meaning. Rav Soloveitchik explains in Thinking Aloud that the term Makom has dual significance. Makom can refer to tefillah, to davening. At least we know there's a halacha that one should have a Makom kavua, a set place for davening. And this idea of having a Makom kavua also is how a basic Knesset gets its kedusha, by being a place of communal prayer, of where a Makom where people daven. Makom also refers to Hashem himself. As we say in phrases by the Haggadah, Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, or by Avelim, HaMakom Yenachem Eschem. So here, Makom represents Hashem as the ultimate source of connection and comfort. So my uncle, Rav David Holzer, expands on this idea in his work, Vayeitzei David. He notes that the common thread of all the places where we use Makom, referring to Hashem, is its role in fostering an emotional connection with Hashem. So Makom is invoked not merely on an intellectual or rational level, but as a way of seeking divine help on an emotional level, seeking to mend, to be metakein one's heart. By a mourner, when comforting a mourner, we acknowledge that while human words can provide some solace, the ultimate comfort comes from reconnecting with the Makom, with Hashem himself. And thus we say, Ha-Makom Yenachem Eschem. By the Haggadah, at the beginning of the Haggadah, before introducing the 4 sons, who represent varying levels of spiritual engagement, we recite Baruch HaMakom. This expresses our hope to connect all 4 sons to the spiritual Makom, regardless of their individual understanding or capacity. And finally, by Tefillah, which can also be a reference to Makom, tefillah, we know, is described as avoda shebalev, a service of the heart. It is not merely an intellectual exercise, but an emotional experience where one seeks to find and connect with the Shekhinah in the depths of their heart. So we see that this term of Makom, relating both to tefillah, to davening, and also to Hashem himself, to being able to immerse Hashem, we should all be able to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu on an emotional level to the Makom that describes Hashem. In this week's Parsha, Yaakov takes 2 stones, puts it together, and they unite. The Parshas Avraham brings a medrash that provides insight into Yaakov's preparation of 2 stones to rest his head and it uniting. These 2 stones, the midrash says, relates to Avraham's 2 offsprings, Yishmael and Bnei Keturah, and Yitzchak's 2 offsprings, Esav and Eliav. Both of these offsprings, both of Avraham and of Yitzchak, were considered persoles, the midrash calls them, discarded, because they deviated from the spiritual path. Yaakov put together these 2 stones and said to himself, if these 2 stones combine into one, I will know that I will not have psoles among my offspring. It's a wonder. What is this medrash talking about? Why 2 stones coming together has to do and is a siman that is a sign to Yaakov that he won't have psoles, discarded children that will veer off the path. So the Parshas Avraham explains that the building of Klal Yisrael requires achdus, unity. Both Avraham and Yitzchak had children that were not united, that were, some of them were psoles, were discarded or rejected, or were not on the spiritual path. So they were not zocha to establish the shiftei ka, because unity is an essential component of Klal Yisrael. Without it, there could be no cohesive nation. And we find by the base of Migdash, unfortunately, it was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of the division and separation in Klal Yisrael. So Yaakov took the 2 stones, and he said to himself that if these 2 stones combine together, I'll know that my children, there won't be among my children psoles, there won't be among my children discarded. And thus I'll be able, because now I have achdus among my children, I'll be able to start the formation of Klal Yisrael, start the shiftei ka, start the shvatim, and thus that was a klal. And this message of achdus, of unity, is something important that Mirz Hashem, Klal Yisrael should continue to have and should continue to strive for. Achdus, unity, as the foundation of Klal Yisrael, it is necessary to have. Moving on to Perek Chav Ches, Pasuk Tes Vav, during Yaakov's dream, Hashem promises him, V'hine anochi imach ushmarticha b'chol asher telech. Behold, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go. Hashem also says, Ki lo a'azveka, I will not leave you. The Midrash explains that Hashem answered all of Yaakov's concerns except one, Parnasa. However, Rav Isi in that Midrash says that no, even Parnasa was included in Hashem's words, where? In the phrase, Ki lo a'azveka, I will not leave you. Why didn't Hashem explicitly address Yaakov's Parnasa concern? And how did Rav Isi derive that was included in Ki lo a'azveka? So the Duvna Magid clarifies this with a parable. A father was sending his son on a distant journey, so he carefully prepared everything his son would need, supplies, provisions, and even a sum of money for expenses. However, word reached the father that the road ahead was fraught with dangers due to military activity that was ongoing. So the father decided, I must go with my son myself to protect him from the hazards of the journey. So as they prepared to leave, the son turned to his father and asked, where is the wallet of money that you had mentioned before that you prepared for me? Please hand it to me and I'll be on my way. I'll be able to use it for my expenses. So the father replied, why are you asking me about expenses? I'm coming with you. Whatever you need, I will provide personally. So the nimshal is, once Hashem assured Yaakov, V'hine anochi imach ushmarticha b'chol asher telech, promising to personally accompany him, there's no need to separately address Parnasa. Hashem's presence itself was the guarantee that whatever Yaakov needed on the journey, Hashem would provide, including Parnasa. Just like the father in our story, when he was journeying with the son, was going to provide for whatever you need. And now we can understand Rav Isi as well. When the pasuk says, Ki lo ahazveka, am I not always with you? Hashem was saying, whatever you need, I will provide when the time comes. I will not forsake you. So we see the profound message of Hashem as with us and guiding us and protecting us. And when He is with us, we can let go of our worries. Hashem will provide. Hashem will give us Emerz Hashem for all of our needs, including Parnasa. Right after Yaakov dreams about the ladder with angels going up and down, he wakes up and he says, Achei nis Hashem b'makom hazeh. Surely Hashem is in this place. Va'anochi lo yadati. And I did not know. Va'anochi lo yadati, and I did not know. So Rashi comments that if Yaakov had known Hashem was present, he wouldn't have slept. But still, what did Yaakov really mean by Va'anochi lo yadati? So the Chanukah Torah gives a beautiful explanation based on a principle in the Gemara in Brachos. So the Gemara teaches that all dreams are influenced by our thoughts during the day. What we think about when we're awake often shapes what we dream about at night. So now let's come back to Yaakov's word. When he says, Achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh, he's saying, it's certain that Hashem is in this place because of what I saw in my dream. Va'anochi lo yadati, I didn't know. What does he mean? This dream had nothing to do with my thoughts that occurred during the day. But so therefore I know that this dream is certainly from Hashem, because it did not relate to any of the thoughts. Va'anochi lo yadati, I did not know anything that was envisioned in my dream. So, thus, Yaakov is clarifying that this dream wasn't a random reflection of his own thoughts. It was a direct revelation from Hashem, and that's why he exclaims, Achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh.